Welcome to the Coach Speak podcast, built for coaches, by coaches, hosted by Jamie Bolton and Dustin Martin. Sponsored by Ray Crowther, providing the nation's best athletic training equipment since 1932. And R4 Football Systems. Accelerate everything by decoding the game.
Hey guys, welcome back to Coach Speak. Dustin Martin here with Jamie Bolton. We got a special guest out of Georgia tonight. Jamie's going to get into that. Before we get going, I want to shout out to our sponsors, Team Builder, Tsunami Bar Sports, Pro Quick Draw, and Glacier Clinics.
Yeah, guys, today on Coach Speak, we're joined by one of the most respected and consistent winners in high school football, a coach who has built a national powerhouse, produced Division I athletes year after year, and turned Carrollton into a destination program. He's known for elite standards, elite player development, elite culture, and he's done it the right way. Coach Joey King, welcome to Coach Speak.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Appreciate what you're doing.
Yes, sir, man. What's the hardest leadership decision you've ever had to make?
We're diving right in there, huh?
Yes, sir, we are.
Straight in there, man. He put you on the spot, Coach.
Anytime you're in charge from a leadership standpoint, you're in charge of a staff, right? Making staff decisions that end somebody's, employment with you. That's always the toughest. They're sometimes necessary in our profession once you get to that point. But, people's families are tied to it. They got to look for other employment, potentially another place to live. So anytime you deal with those decisions, I think that's kind of the hardest stuff to deal with from a leadership standpoint, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I totally agree, Coach. I've only had to do it once or twice, and it was nothing big per se. It may have just been a stipend position, it was a small amount, but it's like the hardest part about what we do is there's so many relationships and involved with it. I've been in an AD role for a little bit over a year now, and someone's always going to be unhappy. Like, it doesn't matter what decision you make, there's always going to be someone unhappy. And that, I guess that's what it takes to try to be a leader, though. You got to separate and choose and pick the best decision. But I'm with you. That's tough.
Yeah. It's leadership. Like they say, you want to make everybody happy, go sell ice cream, right? You're gonna have people that buy in and believe, and then you're gonna have people that aren't drinking the Kool-Aid. That just kind of comes with the territory.
Yeah, so when you took over Carrollton, talking about that buy-in initially, but did you envision the success that you guys have had at this point?
If I could have predicted it, I would have said no, but did I envision it? Absolutely. I think a leader has to be a visionary. You have to cast a vision of what you want it to be. So in my mind, yes, I did, but from a realistic standpoint, no, I didn't. But I tell our guys all the time, if you reach for the stars, you have an opportunity to chase those dreams. I tell all of our players, I want them to be, have the dream and aspiration to play in the NFL. Well, that's not necessarily a reality for all of them, right? So we better have a plan B and a plan C. So I think there was kind of tiers of what we wanted it to look like. And in year one, we played in the semifinals, and that was something they hadn't done in a while. Then year two, we're in the highest classification in the state of Georgia and was potentially the second toughest playoff bracket in the country, and we're playing for a state championship. So those were our goals. I don't know that I really thought they were realistic, but credit to our staff and our support and our players for making it happen.
Well, belief means a lot, and I think when you don't put ceilings on what your program can achieve or what an individual in your program can achieve, it's kind of wild how those things can turn out. I know in my career too, I can attest to the same thing. I had a question, I think, in an interview. Did you kind of see that come? No, I did not see that as a reality, but I didn't want to tell. I can't see the future either, so I never wanted to put those ceilings on there. That makes a lot of sense. And when you arrived at Carrollton, what were your first priorities?
Yeah, I think for me, in any job that I've taken, my priority is always I put the who before the what. So you're only as good as the people that you surround yourself with. So I wanted to build a staff of great men and great ball coaches, a group that could elevate our culture and get it where we wanted it to be. And then I start learning the players. I immediately I interview the outgoing players that I'm not even going to have the opportunity to coach. And I kind of ask them, what are the great things that y'all do? What are the things that you would want to change? And then I kind of figure out who our current players are, what makes them go, their strengths and weaknesses. And I always start with the who before the what.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. What's funny, and some of our listeners know, but like I took a head job over after Jamie. So when I came in, like me and Jamie are super close. I know what he believes in. We're a lot alike in a lot of ways, and we're different in a lot of ways. And like I would come in and say, listen, in our one-on-one meetings when I first met with him, I was like, listen, me and Coach Bolton, we're tight, we're buddies, but like this is an open space. Like, tell me what you like that he did or how he did things, but also you can be open with maybe what did you not see the point in or whatnot, and then maybe we still might do it, but there might be a different outlook to try to spin it. Like, well, here's what he was trying to achieve, and I think it's so important, and to do that with coaches and players, and I love the who over the what. That's so big. How long you've been there? 5 years, Coach.
5 years, yeah.
5 years. How long do you think it really took for the culture you try to bring to take root and all that?
You kind of, especially at a job like Carrollton, that it usually starts in January. So we got in there early. I've taken a job in April before too, and had to try in a hurry to get those, get the roots in and get your claws in the program really good. But I think at Carrollton, it was probably about halfway through that first season before those kids really started to believe in it. A while back when I took the job at Cartersville, it was kind of a similar time, and it just might have happened a little bit quicker there. But I can vividly remember a game at Cartersville where I think it was the second round of the playoffs, and some linemen that we had that may have thought about quitting early in the process and questioned some of the things we did and why we made it as hard as we made it. That light bulb came on in the middle of that game, and one of the guys is sitting on the bench, and he's like, "Hey, this is why we did everything that we did right here. This is why he made us work." And it kind of just, at that moment, I knew I had them, because they saw it paying off on the field. So I thought that was
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Wow, it's such a small world too, because we had a guy named his name's Dawson Mitchell. He coaches at Cartersville now. He coaches
Oh wow,
linebackers over there.
yeah,
So it's just small world, man, that you were
it
there.
is.
Are
Yeah.
you a traditionally offensive guy, Coach? You ever spend time on the defense side of the ball? Like, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so as a head coach, I'm involved in all three phases. My name's on it, so I'm going to be involved in it. Traditionally, I am an offensive guy. I play quarterback, and I call our offense at Carrollton. But my uncle is Joe Kynes, who was a longtime defensive coordinator at the collegiate level and at the NFL. So if I just say I'm an offensive guy, he'll probably disown me as his nephew. So I'm a ball coach, man. I love ball. I love scheming, whether it be special teams, defense, or offense. But by nature, because I play quarterback, I'm an offensive guy.
Yeah, no, I think that's important. I think you have to have your hands in it, especially when you bring on staff. And I guess you've been there long enough now. I'm sure there's been some turnover. Do you typically are you guys plug and play, or do you bring like a defense coordinator in to run their package?
Yeah, so I hired a defensive coordinator when I first got in, one of my first hires, and then uh, not this past season, but the season prior, he took a head job. We promoted a guy from within the staff to kind of keep the system similar. He had prior defensive coordinator experience and was more than capable. He was actually a college defensive coordinator before we hired him. So he just kind of took the system and put his wrinkles in it and made it his own. So, and then at Cartersville, I brought in my defensive coordinator with me, and he was there the entire time. So we're similar structurally. It's kind of what I like, and they got to be able to communicate it to me. So some of their verbiage may have to change and dumb down a little bit for me to understand.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think whenever you have your systems of play, it's great to be able to promote within. And that says a lot about your program that you have guys that aren't just, you know, they're okay with not being the coordinator. They're kind of waiting their turn. I remember I worked for a guy, Dustin knows too, Bobby Carroll in South Carolina. I was on his staff for 4 years. I started out as a JV coach and then worked my way up, and he allowed me to work my way up as, JV coordinator, varsity receiver, and then I became his offensive coordinator. And I'll never forget that. And that's very rare, I think, in our profession, at least in South Carolina where we're at. It's like, very rarely do you see guys stay in a system that long and become coordinator. They want to move on and all that. But I think it's important. I think that says a lot about your program.
Yeah, and we try. It's not. It doesn't happen 100% of the time. If you read the book Good to Great, most of those successful organizations they hire from within, right? So they kind of understand the culture, and if it can work, great. But if not, we have gone outside for some hires. I think the situation depends on exactly who and what they bring to the table. But we like to stay in house if we can.
You're speaking my language. That was one of the first books that my mentor, Joe Salas, told me to read. He's a head coach at Hobson in North Carolina. Good to Great by Jim Collins, and that really set my entire framework for like organizational structure. I took basically everything in Good to Great, and I think the next book was Built to Last. And if you guys haven't, listeners out there, those are two incredible books to try to manage your thought process, how to build your core values, how to build your what they call the big, hairy, audacious, go all that stuff, the flywheel. Do you still use a lot of that in your program today?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I think one of the things that I, I'm not that I'm great at by any means, but I love reading on leadership. I
Mm,
don't just study X's and O's. I study leading people, and this past year before the season, it was the five dysfunctions of a team, and I mean we
Mm,
we we take all kind of book studies and dive into those guys, and
mhm.
the thing that's common amongst all of those is the good practices that have been good practices 25 years ago. They're still good practices today.
yes, sir.
Yeah,
Truth is
yeah.
always
Mhm.
truth, and good principles are always good principles, and we like to lean on those to try to be successful.
Yeah, and that brings us into a good point, Coach. You were talking about promoting from within a minute ago. Sometimes that internal knowledge is hard to replace. It's
Mhm.
it also says what great help you have that a coordinator can move on, and we have assistants that have been there or are ready to be there. Because it's not like that every job. Some jobs the coordinator leaves and nobody knows what to do. You can't get a guy in, so it's like that speaks volumes of the staff and the people that you have built around you. How do you, being in a high profile job like Carrollton, how do you protect the standards when expectations are so high?
Yeah, it's funny. I had a middle school track coach ask me about handling pressure today, and I sent him a response. My response was, "What is pressure?"
I love it.
I think a lot of people, external pressure and expectation and all that kind of stuff. Nobody's going to put a greater expectation or a greater amount of pressure on us than we do ourselves.
Mm.
And I'm surrounded by a bunch of high flyers. And at Carrollton, they say if you come here and you do a good job, you're gonna stick out like a sore thumb because everybody's trying to do a great job. And I think we're fortunate enough to work in a building where all the men they show up and put their best foot forward every day. And if there's a day that I'm slipping, they're gonna call me out on it too, even though I'm running the show and leading that thing. So just got a bunch of guys that understand the standard, understand the expectation, and we push each other to be better.
Yeah, and I think if you focus on the pressure or the external expectations, and if you focus on all that, you're really putting yourself at a disservice. And I think we've all kind of probably been tempted to kind of think about those things, especially as young coaches. But if you focus on those things, you're really doing yourself a disservice. You need to be focusing on the kids and your task at hand, because if not, you're gonna you're gonna be out, and somebody else is gonna come in that can maybe handle that situation, have a better perspective. So I love that perspective. Like, what is pressure? And I think you can use that for your kids too. I'm talking to me, like, talking to a young quarterback or talking to a young player. Like, there is no pressure, man. That's not real. There's nothing
Right.
real. What's real is, you know, alignment, assignment, and technique, man. Like, let's go get it done and do the best you can.
Yeah, that's right.
If you're serious about building strong, explosive, and durable athletes, you need to know about Tsunami Bar Sports. Tsunami Bars are changing the way football programs train. Their patented fluid field technology creates constant instability, which means every single rep challenges balance, core strength, and control. That translates to better movement, better joint stability, better force transfer, and tougher, more resilient players on Friday nights. This isn't just about lifting more weight. This is about training smarter. Whether you're developing linemen in the trenches, quarterbacks in the pocket, or skilled guys in space, Tsunami bars help your athletes move better, absorb contact, and produce power safely. Programs across the country are using Tsunami bar sports to separate themselves. And once you put them in your weight room, you'll see why. Go to tsunamibarsports.com, check out their full lineup, and start upgrading how your program trains. Tsunami Bar Sports, built for football, built for performance.
Coach, so obviously you win a lot of games, you win some championships. A big thing we like to hear different responses on is, how do you avoid that complacency of, hey, we won, we're moving on to the next season. What is something that you found that works to keep the drive and the hunger there when you're winning?
Yeah, I just think it's all about, and I don't want to try to sound cliche or coach talk, but it's about being more process driven and outcome driven. Who are we today versus who we were yesterday? You versus yesterday mentality. We've been fortunate enough to win championships, And I can remember, walking off that stage, and I was going to look back up at that scoreboard one time. I had the trophy in my hand and just take it all in, man, and value it. And they cleared that thing out, zeroed it out in a hurry, and they cleared the field, and the next team was playing, and
Yeah.
that's the reality of it. I mean, even
Mhm.
if you reach the pinnacle, it's short lived anyhow. So
Mhm.
as soon as that sun goes down and it comes up again the next day, you're working for the next one. So if it's just about the outcome, man, we're gonna sell these kids short. It's
Yeah.
about who you become through the process. And I know that's coach talk, but that's a reality. Who are we becoming? Because we're teaching these young men to show up every day, to put their best foot forward, to forget about yesterday and be better today than they were the day before. And that's going to help them in life. That's going to help them get a job one day. It's going to help them compete and win a wife one day. So
Mhm.
being able to do that, it's preparing them for life and just the process over the outcome, because outcomes are short lived. We've won them and we've lost them too. So if
Yeah.
we're just defined by our outcome, then we're selling ourselves and our kids short.
Yeah, and it seems like it's real empty, and I think anytime you are outcome driven, it just becomes empty, good or bad, because then
Mhm.
it's like, well, what's next? And I
Yep.
think, thinking about that in player development, that player development piece, how do you balance maybe a player's notion of like, I want to have this outcome for my career, like maybe in the recruiting piece, or maybe so I want to win a championship with like long-term player development. How do you balance that and communicate that with the athletes and families?
Yeah, we set team goals and we set individual goals, and we try to sell the fact that the farther the team goes, the greater the opportunity to
Mhm.
accomplish these individual goals. And I think in
Mhm.
our society now, the individual agenda trumps the team concept far too often. But we're very hands on with our program all the way down to the fifth grade. So I've got a fifth grade team, a sixth grade team, a seventh grade team, a eighth grade team, a ninth grade team, and then our JV and varsity. So I'm over the staffs all the way down. They clearly communicate our standard and expectation and how we do things all the way throughout our program. But we have numerous parent meetings. We just had a recruiting meeting that we sent to our people, and we're in a situation of where I've got several guys that have coached at the collegiate level. And we've been fortunate enough at the high school level to send a lot of guys to college. So we've been on both sides of that fence. So for us, we've got an open door policy. Anytime somebody may have a recruiting question, or there's a lot of things that are out there that are great for parents, and there's a lot of things out there that are just trying to steal their money. So we try to be as transparent as we can be about the process. And I think one of the biggest things that we do, and it's been great for us, it's hurt us in the fact that we've actually had some players leave, is we're going to tell the truth. If you're 6'2" and you're not 6'4", we're not going to say that you're 6'4". If
Mhm.
you run a 4.7 and you don't run a 4.5, we're not going to say that you run a 4.5. We've got a name to uphold and an image to represent, and that standard of how we do anything is how we do everything. That's throughout our program. So we try to be honest and transparent and have an open door policy with our parents regarding getting their kids to the next level.
Yeah, and I think that ties into, not being outcome driven. Like we had a sermon one time in church, and I've kind of carried it on with me years ago, that about the pursuit of happiness and what that looks like. And when you just keep chasing that offer, or that job, or that degree, or just those outcomes, you're never going to be happy. You may be or you'll never find joy. You'll be happy when you achieve them, but like you said, when that scoreboard cuts off and it's moving on. And I think that's such a big part of working with young people today, is like teaching, listen, it is okay to have these goals, have these aspirations, but don't lose sight of the process to get there. Don't lose sight of, hey man, my whole 3 years of varsity football at the high school level is about getting that offer to move on. No, man, it's about brotherhood. It's about learning who you are. It's about getting techniques that's going to help you through life. And I think that's a big part of the recruitment process. Listen, like, and shout out, this is called three-dimensional coaching, coach. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but we had a
Yep.
speaker, Jeremy Reed, on, and they just talk about it like, and the analogy is great. They said, listen, the reason you play, your purpose is the food, and then the competitiveness and the recruiting, that's the spice. And sooner or later, all that spice you keep adding, your food's just going to be spice. There's not going to be
Right.
food anymore. And I think, like you said, back to the leadership thing, some people are going to be unhappy, but it's like, we're not going to ruin our reputation in recruiting just to try to help you get an edge, because you're going to get found out either way. And no, that's awesome. So what would you say the biggest advice you give your families to try to navigate recruiting? What do you think a big one is?
Oh man. Be patient. Nowadays the market is crazy, right? Especially with the addition of the transfer portal and all this stuff that's going on at the collegiate level. If you've got big dreams to play, we're going to be honest and embrace where we're at. Look at the opportunities at hand. One of the things I tell our guys all the time is we don't want to fish for sharks and go hungry, right? We want to catch fish and eat. So find the level that you can play at, and now that opportunity still exists. If you go and excel, you have the opportunity to move up and use the transfer portal to your advantage. But definitely, it's find a place to play, and we got kids that sign at all different levels. If you want to play college football, I'm a firm believer that there's a place out there for you. You just need to look for it and work for it, and we help those guys with that. And we try to tell our guys to, one, be a good person. Your character matters, right, when people are looking at you, but also to excel in the classroom. Depending on the level that you play at, the more academic money that you can get, the better. So we want to make sure those guys check all those boxes to be in a good position to be able to go play if they want to.
Yeah, that's a great point. I just had this discussion. Our head coach had me speak to our entire, program the other day about recruiting and kind of the landscape. And I think it's important, when you have those one-on-one meetings, at least in my experience, it's like, what are you guys really after? Are you about like getting recruited and like what that feels like, from like okay, I feel good because I'm getting recruited. Is that what we want? Or do we want something that's going to better our life? And I think that's a fine line. And I think getting to the core of that, and I challenged our parents. I was like, is this what we want our kids to feel? They want to feel special. They want to feel that validation from, their peers or social media and the likes and all that, or they want a genuine path to have some success after high school. And so I think
Yeah.
that's something too that I think needs to be talked about more. I know as us coaches, we see it all the time. It's like a kid gets an offer at another school. Maybe it's a school with a ton of great athletes. College comes through and they just throw a bunch of offers out because they're hoping they can get one to stick. But really, the offers aren't real because the kids may be, the seventh or eighth guy on their board, and then it's not a committable offer because they got to wait for the next six to make a decision. So it's hard with the parents, man. It's hard with the kids, especially when they're just in it for the validation
Yeah,
piece. But
we really try to sell. So one, we tell our parents to run your race, right? And
Mhm.
comparison is the thief of joy, right?
Yeah.
So run your race. And then we really try to sell development. We run our program as close to a college program as we can, from the way that we meet, the way that we make our kids meet, the way we install, the way we lift. I mean, we run it as close to a college program as we can. So what we're selling is not just getting these offers and getting you the attention,
Mhm.
but having you ready when you get there,
Yes.
right? There's several programs throughout our state and throughout the country that have gone away from traditional values and just hard-nosed football, and they've got videographers at practice, and they let
Oh
them
yeah.
wear all this other mess on their head and their legs, and it's crazy. But what happens with those people is they love recruiting and they don't love ball. They love the
Mhm.
attention that comes with it. So when they're in the middle of fall camp and they're not getting told how good they are, how pretty they look, right? They're ready to hang it up and go somewhere else. So
Mm.
our kids, most of the time when they get there, they're developed and they're ready to be there because they love football. Because we put them through a lot, and it ain't for everybody, But
Yeah.
our kids are usually ready. We just had
Love it.
two FCS freshmen All American. That they played as true freshmen, and
Wow.
they're All Americans. And then the transfer portal hit, and one of them's at Iowa State, and one of them's at Georgia Southern now. So it's a
Wow.
great testament to our coaching staff
Mhm.
and those kids.
Yeah. So coach, you coached Trevor Lawrence in high school, correct?
I did,
So,
yeah.
so I just want to hear a little bit on that. So, being a first round overall draft pick, at what point coaching him in high school did you say this dude is legit? Like this kid's got a shot. Like just how I've never coached a first round draft pick. Bobby coached Jadeveon Clowney. He also coached Gilmore, but it's like, and how is that in high school? Do you see it early? Like what? Just share some thoughts about that.
Yeah, so when I first took the job at Cartersville, Trevor was in the 8th grade, so I wanted to go and meet the rising 9th grade players, and I walk into the cafeteria, and they're all they come bebopping in there, and here comes this kid about a head and a half taller than everybody else. And I'm like, man, who is this kid? He looked like a baby giraffe walking in there, and we bring him up and let him go through spring ball with us, and I think that first spring, we're running a 4-vert concept versus middle of field open, and we got a bender side tag, so we read the bender. And as soon as that linebacker walls and releases, the ball is out of his hand and it hits the guy in the ear hole. And this is an 8th grader sitting here making a cover 2 beater throw like he's been doing it his entire life. And I remember I remember that season. There's a game that we're playing, and he drops back to pass, and his mouthpiece falls out of his mouth. And in the middle of the play, he catches his mouthpiece, puts it back in his mouth, and delivers a ball. And you're like, "What? Who is this kid?" So he's
True freak.
destined to play the game. And I tell you, one of the things that I always say about when these coaches come through is he was a real deal in every category. I mean, he was a excellent student, an excellent person, a player. He can run, he can throw. I mean, you name a category, he checked all those boxes.
Yeah, I mean, what a special talent. I mean, we talk to Bobby Carroll all the time about coaching those guys at South Point, and man, it's just incredible to hear him talk about. Like, it's one thing to I don't know. It's just something about those special athletes that just make your program, I guess, important to kind of the nation in a way. And it also highlights other kids. Man, those guys are so special. He talks about going to meeting Nick Saban and all that. I'm sure you guys had similar experiences, but
Oh yeah.
that's awesome. So, we really kind of want to talk about like personal development. So, you've been doing this a while. You've been successful, and you talk about reading leadership books. And I really want to kind of dive into this a little bit. But how do you continue to grow? As you've reached the top, so to speak, how do you continue to grow each year? What are some books right now that you're kind of going through, or some studies that you and your staff are doing?
Yeah, I wish I could tell you the name of the book. I just started it just a little bit ago, and it's basically something about champions. And this guy, he studied some of the most elite teams to ever exist in the history of sports. And he's diving into them right now, kind of seeing the commonalities that are measurable. You're right. You can't
That's
just
cool.
say their culture was great, right? So he's doing all these measurable commonalities that these people have. So really enjoying that. But I mean, I pick a couple of books each year, and it could be about business. It could be about leadership. That's kind of the realm that I usually stay in. I read The Old Man at the Sea at the Sea not too long ago. Just as something to read. But I normally read leadership books or sports books. I've got mentors. So Coach Raven Teague was one of my mentors as I was a young coach. I still call him and pick his brain about stuff. Most of my other mentors are dead and gone. The older I get, those guys kind of fade away. But I still value the lessons and hold those dear that I've learned from those guys. We meet a lot as a staff, and then we travel. So I try to take my offensive staff on a trip each year, my defensive staff on a trip each year, just to different places, different colleges, and learn from their staffs. And then again, just trying to be around, some wiser coaches than myself as often as I can.
What was one of y'all's favorite places that y'all visited the clinic? What do you think? Because sometimes you go to like just generic clinics, and it's great for your younger coaches and people to learn, but like there's nothing like going to a school and deep diving with the staff. What was one that you really enjoyed?
Oh man, so maybe 3 years ago, we took our defensive staff to Air Force Academy, and Coach Brian Noor was the DC out there. And you at these academies, you got a bunch of guys that love our country and they love ball. They're not there for all the glamour, and so just a bunch of hard-nosed jokers that love defense. And they had like the top defense in the country the year that we went out there, and just how they approached practice, and then visiting Colorado Springs, Colorado was beautiful too. So being able to go out there and visit with those guys, and we kind of do it like we're getting ready to take our offensive trip. Actually, this weekend we leave to go on ahead, and then our defense is going to Virginia this year to visit with those guys. But we use it as a pre-spring deal to kind of structure our installs. We go through them all. I mean, we fine tooth comb those things as we're getting ready for spring ball, and then just asking questions. We spend time with the position coaches, and I make our guys have a couple of questions that they're going to ask the position coaches before we go, so we can kind of read through them and make sure that we get
Heck
what we
yeah.
need.
Yeah. What kind of personnel offense do you like the most? Are you a 10, 11, 12? Like what's your go-to if you got the personnel?
Yeah, 11 for us. So, but 11 with the ability with that guy, and that guy's the key to get in and out of 10 and 11 sets without changing personnel. So that's who we are.
Big guys, gap scheme or zone scheme or both?
We're both. So like early installs, inside and outside zone, power counter. That's what we're gonna hang our hat on. And then we got some one-offs here and there. We'll run dart, we'll run 11 personnel belly, just different type of stuff. But inside outside zone, power and counter, and RPO stuff off of those guys. We throw A level, B level, C level RPOs and do a lot of that.
Love it.
Yeah.
No, I think that's great. No, that makes sense. I love 11. We actually had Brent Dearman on the podcast a few weeks ago, and it was really neat because Brent Dearman back in 2016 came to our school at York and installed the whole like Malzahn system with the RPO stuff. So I came from air raid, you know, kind of background and structure to, you know, we're going to run this Gus Malzahn, we're going to run power, and we're going to run counter. And, you know, buck sweep was kind of what we hung our hat on. And really those it's kind of been pretty good for us year in and year out. We'll do a little bit of split zone, but that's pretty cool to hear.
So y'all are offensive guys. So I want to hear from both of you. If you had the choice between two quarterbacks, you got one who's a gunslinger. He never has to leave the pocket, and that's just what he does. Cannot run a lick. Like he can't even score like Mendoza did on the draw. Like cannot run a lick. Or would you rather have a average, maybe slightly below average passer, but he could use his feet to help offset what he couldn't do? What do y'all think, Coach? We'll let you go first.
Yes, sir,
we'll let you
are.
go first.
I'll let you go first.
My first answer is it depends, right? I think that's the greatest answer you can give in football. What does he have around him?
Exactly.
You know, I got a bunch of receivers and a really good running back. I'd like to have that one that could sit back there, you know. So it kind of just depends what he's got around him. If he's got an offensive line that can't protect, I'd rather have the one that can run a little bit, you know. So it just depends.
Such a good answer.
Have you had both? Have you had I know you've had both in one quarterback, but have you had to kind of adapt to more of a traditional pocket passer or more of a runner?
Yeah, most of our guys have just been passers. You know, we had Trevor, and Trevor can run. I mean, y'all have seen him play, but I didn't run him because I didn't have one behind him. So, like, if you start a freshman, you know, everybody, well, can he run, coach? Well, yeah, he can run, but I'm not gonna run him, you know. So I don't want to do that. It's like one of my assistant coaches one year. Sometimes as a coach, you get too cute with some things, you know, and you want to be elaborate. And we had this Wildcat package when we had Trevor, and we pulled Trevor off and put this Wildcat guy in there. And my quarterback's coach just kind of looks at me. He's like, "We're taking the best player in the country off the field to run Wildcat. Like, what are we doing? You know, coach of the year right there. Defensive coordinator was hoping we stayed in that set, you know."
Right.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, Coach, you went to South Florida with Jeff Scott, correct?
I did.
Did that relationship with him kind of happen, you know, when Trevor was getting recruited to Clemson, or how did that kind of work out for you?
Coach Speak listeners, if you're serious about growing as a football coach, there's only one place you need to be every single year, and that's Glazier Clinics. Glazier is the gold standard of coaching education, bringing together the best high school and college coaches in the country to teach real, practical football. We're talking offense, defense, special teams, strength, leadership, culture, everything you need to build a championship program. No fluff, no wasted time, just clinic after clinic packed with ideas that you can take straight back to your staff and the practice field. And the best part, with Glazier Drive and Glazier Connect, you can get access to thousands of presentations, videos, and resources year-round. So you're learning 24/7, not just on clinic weekends. If you're interested, you can check out my offensive courses in Glazier Connect as well. Plus, me and Dustin will be in the booth at the Charlotte Glazier Clinic this year on March 14th. So make sure you stop by, say what's up, and connect with us in person. Head to glazierclinics.com, get registered, and keep sharpening your edge.
Yeah, I got to know the Clemson staff with Trevor, you know, Coach Swing in and out a good bit, and I just through recruiting, and we would go up there and visit and watch spring ball, and then I took the job with Jamie, and I was actually on the road. I was somewhere in upstate South Carolina recruiting. I think I was at Wren watching them getting ready for the playoffs or something, and they might have been the only team in my area that was still playing at the time. And I called the guys at Clemson and said, "Hey, can I come by and watch y'all practice?" They were getting ready for a bowl game against Virginia. And so I'm standing there on the practice field, and Jeff just walked up to me after it, and he was like, "Hey, it hadn't come out yet, but next week I'm probably going to be named the head coach at South Florida. Are you interested in coming with me?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, coach." You know, I thought it was just small talk. Well, I'll be danged. The next Wednesday, it came out, and I didn't get a phone call. And I was like, "Yeah, it's just small talk." And then that Friday, my phone rang, and he said, "Look, I got a million calls when I took this job, and you didn't call me, and I even told you I had a job for you." He said, "So I want to know if you want to come to South Florida." And I jumped on that as quick as we could. Now, we love being with Jamie. Jamie did a great job with those guys at Coastal Carolina, and living in Myrtle Beach was good, you know. But South Florida, I was like, man, it's going to be a little bit warmer down there, you know.
Doubt.
And I thought it was just a step up going from, you know, the Sun Belt to the American. And we had our work out for us when we got down there. But I only did that for a year with Jeff, and then Carrollton came calling, and I came back to my home state of Georgia.
Heck yeah. Did you, sorry, Jamie, did you work with Cody Ledutko at CCU?
I know Cody. Yeah.
We just had him on, man. We just had him on.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. y'all are going to drop, I think, like back to back, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
That's crazy,
I
man.
left
That's wild.
cover. He was the he GA'd for us. He was from Davidson, man. Sharp. He does a great job, and he's a great human being too.
He is.
He's got that hair going now, man. He's got the long flow. We gave him a hard time on yes.
He's got like a little mullet action.
Me when I knew him.
Yeah, he's got that thing laid out, man. So it's
Nice.
so what did you take from South Florida that you brought to Carrollton? Like what were some things that you or were there things that, were you already doing?
Both places were similar to how we've always been culturally, like valuing the players and loving each other and family and all that kind of stuff, which was great. Being at South Florida with Charlie Weiss Jr. though was really, really good. I mean, you talking about he's the OC at LSU now, been with Coach Kiffin, but Charlie, he's sharp as a tack. I mean, almost savant-like when it comes to some things. So some of the system we took, from South Florida with Charlie, and then I got a couple of wrinkles that we had from Jamie. And I mean, our offense is like a smorgasbord, man. I got stuff from all over the place in there, but
That's awesome.
ultimately it comes down to what I learned. I ran a split back veer in college, right? And my college head coach won 300 and something games. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame and all that kind of stuff. And he basically taught me, if you can count, you can coach. And a lot of stuff's about creating numbers advantages. If you can count to 6, you better run it the other way. And that stuff's. I mean, it's easy. It's something that we overcomplicate. But if you can count and you can gain numbers somehow, you can coach this game.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And what are some habits that, like, us high school coaches, like, just talking personally here, you've been in the college world and the high school world. What habits do you keep personally that keep you sharp and on top of the game? Like, maybe outside of, like, doing your studies, maybe it's a part of that, but talk about your daily habits. We're interested in that.
Well, my daily routine, first thing I do, I get up and I'm in the Word of God. I want to make sure that my feet are set on that rock and not this sand that it could be. And I pray every day, God, don't let me mess this thing up, because I promise you, if it's left up to Joey King, I'm gonna fall flat on my face. So my strength and my help comes from a higher power. People laugh at me. I do, like, I play Wordle and connections on my phone. Just trying little mind games to try to stay sharp. People laugh at me for, like, as I'm game, man, y'all are going to get a kick out of this. I just told somebody this on an interview yesterday. So as I'm game planning, I listen to Native American flute music for some reason, right? So why, I couldn't tell you, but just the slowness, it's kind of like elevator music, right? It just kind of gets you calm and settles you in a little bit. So that's kind of my, I don't even know the right word to use, but it's just my aura when I'm game planning, Other than that,
I'm gonna tell Dustin to dub that in on the background of this. Just
put it in.
just
Hey,
that
man, it'd
one.
be
Just
great. I'd be fired
put
up.
it in there, dude.
I'd be fired. There's a clip on YouTube. Like, if you just search for Native American flute music, it's like 3 hours long. So on game day,
Wow.
I just let that guy ride, But it's that's a little unknown.
fantastic.
And then I try to stay in shape. I'm not a grinder in the gym like I need to be, but I tell all of our guys, get a physical every year. I've got a rule on my staff, and maybe it's biased. I probably don't need to put it out there, but it's like, hey, I got no 3X coaches. So if you're 3X, get into 2X. One, for your personal health, and then 2, you guys know, as y'all are head coaches and ADs, right? Hey, them 3Xs cost a whole lot more money, right? So stay in 2X and lower. So we try to take care of ourselves as best we can.
So, Coach, we had Chad Greer on a couple weeks ago, and he told me about a book, The Purpose-Driven Book, and I purchased it. And it's 42 days, and you read a chapter a day. It's about 4 to 6 pages. And like, I'll call Jamie and, like, man, like, dude, today was really good. And it's just like, surrendering kind of everything to him, man. It's just like, listen, it's in your hands. Let me be where my feet is and do your will. And it's great, to hear there's other coaches and big roles like you that's like, listen, man, I know where I'm grounded, because if I'm not, I'm going to fall flat on my face. If it's up to me as a human in the flesh, I'm going to screw up. There's no way I can do it on my own. And it's just, it's great. There's 7 teams you're over, you impact so many people, and to just hear that's what you try to ground yourself every morning. It's great.
I think something too that I don't even know if me and Dustin even intentionally think about it this way, but I feel like we connect a few times a week, and we'll talk about, hey man, I was praying for this week, and this is what I felt, or this is what happens. And I think having someone to lean on, I'm sure, like a mentor or even a friend, a coaching buddy that can kind of, like, share some of those experiences, or you can have like, I don't know, it's almost like an accountability thing too. It's like, hey man, I've been working on this, man. Like, and then having that guy say, hey man, I think you need to step up in this area, or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. But I think having that bond with someone also is extremely helpful for me. I think Dust could probably say the same thing too. Just me and him.
No, it
But
is, and that's again, I got guys on my staff that I think make me a better man. It's one of the reasons that I hired them. And they're great ball coaches too. But they push me, they hold me accountable. Iron sharpens iron. We believe that. Y'all talked about impact earlier. We got 3 questions we think about every day. One, have I made an eternal impact today? That's our
Mhm.
number 1 goal, right? Number 2 is, have I made a future impact? So we're talking 20 years. I want to make decisions now that it affect Trojans 20 years from now. And then 3, have I made an immediate impact? Who personally did I impact in some type of way today? But that eternal one, that comes first, because that's what it's all about.
Yes, sir. And when you're doing that, when you're trying to be intentional about making those impacts, what are some of the things that you do in your program? Is that like, you initially engage those players all at once? Is it a culmination of like doing that and then maybe pulling a kid aside? How do you do that specifically in your program to create that eternal impact, as a priority?
Yeah, well, a couple of different ways. One, I love pulling kids to the side and asking them how they're doing, because me as the head coach, I could walk around with my chest poked out all the time and not really interact with them, and
Mhm.
leave that up to the position coaches. So I think it means a little bit more when I pull them to the side. And then 2, I pray for them during the year. So we'll print out the pages of our roster, or that go in that program that you sell at the gate and stuff, and I'll print out those pages, and I'll divide it up by 5 days, and I'll pick a group for those 5 days, and I'll pray specifically for a certain group on Monday, certain group on Tuesday, certain group on Wednesday.
Mhm.
And then after I do it, I try to text those guys, hey, look, man, I hope everything's going great. Just want you to know I prayed for you today. Love you. I hope you have a great day. And
Man, that's
that,
awesome.
hopefully, that carries a lot of weight.
It certainly would. I mean, I can imagine what that would feel like as a player, knowing that my head coach that gets on me all the time, he's pushing me, he's over so much. He's got his own stuff going on to think about me. And I think that's a huge, and that's going to teach them, to pay it forward to in their life as a father
Yeah.
or, member of the community. I love that, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. That's what it's all about. I love
Mhm.
getting, and I know y'all do too, but I love getting those text messages from those guys that you used to coach that are now, they're businessmen or they're fathers. I had at Cartersville, we had a kid that lived with us for probably, I don't know, 2.5, maybe 3 months. And, just this past year, he texted me, hey coach, I remember when you made me, I used to have to lay in the floor while you were reading the Bible to your kids at night. He said, look, I got 2 little girls now, and I
Wow.
want you to know I do the same thing because I saw you do that. And you
Wow.
talk about hitting you in the gut right there. That
Yes,
that's
sir.
that's what it's all about.
That'll get you right there. Coach, what do you think young coach Joey King, you know, believed about coaching that you now know, man, that's not true. Like what was something, coming up younger that you were like that you don't see the same anymore?
Yeah, I used to not necessarily head coach, but when I first started, and I think everybody's guilty of just wanting to wear that logo, whatever that logo is, wanting to be at the clinic wearing that college logo or this high school logo on your chest. Man, that at the end of that day, that logo ain't gonna be there, and what's underneath that logo is a whole lot more important. So I
Mm.
think that's probably
Mhm.
I would tell myself, because I was, man, I read Football Scoop every day, and I was looking at the job market and doing all that kind of stuff instead of focus on being where my feet were, and making the most of the day that God had given me.
Yeah, it's like you don't wanna waste the time, and I think all young people are like that. I mean, we can all
Yeah,
attest to that. Even, we talk about with our kids, but it's the same thing with us adults too. I see a lot of and we're all guilty of it, but you see a lot of that in our profession. I think you see a lot of that toxicity kind of
yeah,
emerging with a lot of our coaches. It seems like it's less in college than it is in high school. It seems like high school's got more of that, and I'm not really sure why that is, but
yeah. I
God, you
don't
just
know.
see it everywhere. I don't know. It's wild, but yeah. Dustin, you ready for rapid fire, man?
Yeah, coach, this has been great, man. We can move to a rapid fire section. Just kind of, we've been drilling you with a lot of questions, but these are just a little less deep and just kind of more fun just to get your input. So we'll let Jamie
All
start
right.
it off.
All right, coach, out of all your entire career, okay, college, high school, your toughest opponent.
Oof. I'm gonna say Buford.
Mhm.
Yeah, they do
And
a
why
great job. A lot of talent and do a great job coaching.
Yeah, that's always a bad combination. They got a tough their environment too. Is that one that is that pretty hard place to play? So
Yeah,
how is it? I
they
haven't
take
been
it
down there to Georgia, but how does that look? What do those environments look like?
Oh, well, when we're playing them, it's packed. I mean, it's standing
Yeah.
room only. And the last time we played them, it was a state championship game last year. So it was, I say the state championship game. It was what a lot of people call the national championship. And we ended up losing by one score, and it was a heartbreaker for us. But they're tough. They're tough year in and year out.
Yes, sir.
No, that makes a lot of sense, Coach. That's a heavyweight fight, and that's I've said on here before. I said, man, like, you got to get away from they put their pants on the same way we do, because the kids is like, all right, man, that means something else right there if Coach is saying that. So it's like, hey guys, it's a heavyweight fight. What does that mean? The chances
Ali
of us
Frazier.
hanging 50 and shutting them out very slim to
No,
none. So it's like,
It's
man,
Ali Frazier, man. You're one punch away, man. You're one punch
I
away.
told our guys that one time. I said they put their pants on the same way we put ours on. They said, yeah, Coach, but their pants are a whole lot bigger than ours.
Bigger.
There you go. Yeah, couple more double XLs and XLs. That's awesome.
Coach, you're turning film on to watch an opponent that you're coming up with. Let's say Buford, you're turning the film on. What's the first thing you're checking on film? Like, what is something you need to know immediately before?
I look at it as I make sure I'm breaking down the right team. I don't know if y'all have ever done that before, not been writing the right stuff down about the right team. So I think the first thing I check is personnel. I write down personnel, and then I just kind of watch the flow of that last game that they played, just to try to get the feel of who they are. But personnel is probably the first thing that I look for.
Yeah, I've done that before. I'm out there charting. I'm like, dang, man, I think I'm charting the wrong team.
I definitely
charting the wrong. ODK was wrong or something. Like, dude, what are we doing, guys?
Some coach put that they were the home team, but they were the away team. So you're charting
no question.
The dark jerseys.
And you're like, man, I wasted a whole hour here. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I think that's such a important part, because it's like, I can't tell you how many times I get caught up in data input, and and I don't watch the flow of the previous game. I'm so focused on, okay, who are they, what are they doing, and then as you chart, it's like, okay, maybe you're charting defensive fronts. It's like you start to get a picture of, oh man, that 3 technique, he's going to be an issue, But I think you got to take time to step back and, like you said, watch the flow, watch the actual personnel. Like, maybe that's the whole reason driving what they're running. That, oh, man, this is why they run this, because check that safety out who can just play wherever he wants. But
I think initially I would watch film and never really watch the whole game. Like, I would watch just my myopic, like, I'm going to just go through by formation family, and I'm going to do my breakdown stuff. But I think there is a lot of wisdom in, let's take a breath. Let's see what this, I'm an offense coordinator. Let's just watch the defense. Let's see the flow of the game. I think that's huge, Coach King. Just see how they are, you might get a feel for it without the data. All of us coaches are visual guys anyway. You start to pick up on little things. You get a feel for the game, and then you kind of go break it down. But I can remember, dang, I don't even think I watched any of their real games. I'm just watching their players, and you don't get as good of a feel, I don't think. So
that's right.
That's good, man. That's awesome.
That's why I do it. Just try to figure out kind of who the head coach is. If he's over the game and making decisions, just kind of who they are in certain situations. And sometimes when you just look at your cut-ups, it's hard to figure out the situation. Right, you can see the D&D, but you don't know at what point in the game that was going on. So I kind of just like to see the flow of the game.
Yep. Definitely. What's the one coach you admire most?
My uncle Joe Kynes. So that, and then my college head coach Ken Sparks. Coach Sparks passed away a few years back with cancer, and he always talked to us about the scoreboard in your heart's a whole lot more important than the scoreboard at the end of the fields. And I watched my Uncle Joe coach at the highest levels, and he was one that I've talked to many of his former players that did it the right way. And that those are two guys that I try to emulate, and hope I hold a candle to them, but I know I don't.
It's very interesting how we always admire the ones and we never remember their wins and loss record.
Yeah.
It's always something that how they made you feel, either by their example or what they poured into you. And I think that's something that we got to keep leaning into in this profession.
I agree.
Because those are what you talked about earlier. That's an eternal impact versus just their own glory and doing things for your own benefit. But I love that.
All right, Coach, last one, unless Jamie's got another one. What I'm gonna get a little messy here, man. What do you think's the most just overrated quarterback drill that does not apply to the game
Oh,
at
this is gonna
all?
be good here.
Oh man.
Oh
The
yeah.
most overrated quarterback drill. Jeez, I don't know, man. I don't. Yeah, you got any specific that you want to throw my way? See if I like them or not. I don't
Man,
know that.
I saw one on dang Instagram. I showed Dustin, man, and it was like bunch of dang
Look like
quarterbacks
the
doing
mind
this, like in a
scrambler at
day.
the fair or
I'm
something.
like, I don't know what
Yeah,
we're doing here, guys. I don't
and
know.
I mean, I
Those
like
things are silly.
I like creating chaos. You know, we
Yeah.
try to tell our guys to be calm and a beehive. And anytime we do any type of drills, you know, we want it to be chaotic, but
Mhm.
we're not doing crazy stuff. You know, Jameis Winston had some of the stuff that he did in the offseason one time. I don't know if y'all ever saw that. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
he's squatting and doing multiplication tables, and I mean all kind of stuff. You
Hey,
know, but
man, how
you
about we
know,
just take a drop and go through our
no
progression
question.
one time?
Just get rid of it quick.
That's right.
But I don't
Yeah.
know. You know, we're I try to tell my coaches to be creative in drill work.
Mhm.
And I think you have to do that, but there's a fine line between creative and silly at times. You know, as
Yeah.
coaches, everybody wants the newest or the next thing. And there's a lot of old football stuff out there that's been good for years that's still good. X's are
Mhm.
still X's and O's are still O's, and those things
Yeah.
that make you good at them are still make you good at them today. So ain't no
Yes,
point
sir.
in reinventing the wheel.
Trying to
I
reinvent.
remember this from Coach Carroll. He made us as assistant coaches create our own cut-ups of our drills
Yeah.
and then present that to the rest of the staff, like on like our own inside mini clinic. And
Yeah.
so what it did was it forced some guys to really evaluate their own process, like as position coach. So I remember being the wide receiver coach, and I'd done all my stuff, and I was already pretty prepared. But then you start thinking about, okay, what can I eliminate of my drill set and then add into that specifically go into developing the receivers for our offense. Like then you start to really dial in, and so like it really forced me to make this whole matrix of like, okay, what are the characteristics I want the receivers to have? What are the skill set? What's the skill set that's going to meet those characteristics? And then what are the drills that are going to build that skill set? And I think that's important for any coach to consider. Like we talk about all these silly drills, like what is that really building in for the kid? Like for that specific offense.
It's got to be relevant. I know everybody's got, you know, everyday drills that they do, and that's fine. I'm not a huge everyday drill guy, right? It's what do we need to improve on? You know, if we need to
Yes.
improve on something, that's what we need to work. You know, if
Mhm.
my backpedaling weave is great, right? But I'm terrible at quarter turning and driving out of that break. I better be working that quarter turn and drive out of that break and not so much backpedaling weave. So it has to be relevant, and the kids have to be able to carry it over into you know live action. So
I'm with you, Coach. I'm not a EDD guy.
I'm not either.
Hey, this is what we do. We tackle, we cause turnovers, and we're gonna make sure we're good at that. But like,
yep.
we're not gonna do the same thing every single day, just out of monotony, just to say we do it.
Arbitrarily just
Yeah.
doing it to
I
say
mean,
that that's what we do.
Yep.
Yeah. Crazy.
Coach, man,
Coach.
this has been absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's been
yeah,
great,
I
and
I appreciate you
definitely
getting.
a lot of
Yeah,
things you shared tonight that I love. I think the biggest one, man, is the 3 impacts. That was awesome,
I
man.
wrote that down.
Eternal,
Yep.
future, and present. I mean that's gonna stick with me past this episode, and hopefully it sticks with some others. But that's awesome. We truly appreciate having you on.
yeah, it's been fun. I appreciate it, guys.
Guys, we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for tuning into the Coach Speak podcast. If you're interested in being a guest speaker on the show, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at coachspeakpodcast1@gmail.com. And if you have a question for our Q&A segment, don't forget to submit it through the form in the episode description. We appreciate your support, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.